Hello, my nomies. This week's car review is the Kia Sedona. I believe it's the 2015 model. Let me go ahead and check this sheet. Yes, 2015. And it's also sunset. I should probably not do these reviews at this time of day, if only because I know I'm very, very bright, and I'm white enough to begin with. I'm not really a van kind of driver. I've driven vans before, but this is quite a large vehicle, even for someone who has a growing family, not that we plan on having more kids. Jedi is a perfect daughter. We're planning on stopping after her, so I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be in the market for a minivan, but if I was, then I will let you know that this would probably be in the running for a lot of different reasons. This video review is my experience. I'm not a car guy. I'm just a dad and a husband and a geek. When I saw the vehicle, I said, wow, that's big. It's a big car. Is it a car anymore? Is it a minivan? Is it a van? I don't know. It's a Sedona. That's about all I know, and it's from Kia. It's a Kia Sedona. So, it was big. Bigger than I was really accustomed to a vehicle being. And even my wife remarked several times over, as she had driven this as well over the course of the week, it was big. But I'm not going to hold that against the car. I think it's the big value that the car has going for it. And the fact that it is big is really its primary selling point. Or big enough. Not too big. Big enough. But even for a minivan, I thought it was rather stylish. It looked modern, updated, sleek, dare I say? As I sat down in the car for the first time, of course I noticed all the controls, as I'm prone to do, and realized that it was definitely deep, long, but not that wide. And that was something that I appreciated. Not being used to a large vehicle, I was really worried about driving it and not knowing, you know, how much space I might have, not just on the road, but certainly in parking. But there was a feature, and I'll talk about it in just a second, that really, really impressed me. I did wonder, though, if it was going to be too big for me. Not just because there are only 3 of us in our immediate family, and we don't necessarily need a lot of space, but specifically in operating the vehicle on the road, would I feel uncomfortable? Did I feel like it would be too much of a vehicle for me, too big for me? And those fears were quickly allayed. I feel that as much as this is a larger vehicle than I'm accustomed to, it didn't feel like it was just unwieldy. Like, it didn't feel like I was jumping from a super compact car to an RV like my dad drives. It was manageable. It seemed extremely manageable, and as much as I had noted several times over that it was big, and my wife did as well, it was big but manageable. And I think that's what minivans probably should be. Upon driving it for the first time, and then of course throughout the week, the controls felt very familiar. The Kia interface I had been accustomed to before. Very familiar controls, very accessible controls. You had primary, I guess, accessibility with buttons that you press these variety of buttons. They do various things. That's something that I think everybody would come to expect. Even though you do have a good balance between analog and digital, it was primarily analog. You could get to digital with the speedometer, or of course, you know, anything in the nav system. You have either automatic controls or you can switch to manual. Of course, I'm not a fan of manual at all. It didn't feel like it was teched out like I've had in other cars, but it felt like, you know, if I was the average dad, that I would have everything I'd need and then some. I was really missing the heads-up display. That's one of those car features that once you have, it's very difficult to live without, and I did miss it. I really think a car or a driving experience is really enhanced with a heads-up display. So that was missing, but I felt like I had the same amount of, I guess, accessibility in terms of what was going on in the car with the dashboard, the digital dashboard. I, of course, ignored the analog dials. I always do, like the speedometer, and I like digital readouts. So I had that, and they were accessible through a variety of menus, but having to get to that part of the menu sometimes was a bit challenging. It would have been enhanced by a heads-up display, but I think a heads-up display at this point is a nicety. It would have been nice to have. One of the first things that I noticed in just about any car, especially with a built-in nav, backup camera. This backup camera is the most amazing backup and front-facing camera I've ever experienced. I have no way of explaining it. It was epic. They did something that had me wondering every time, and my wife as well, how did they do that? And that's how you know it's amazing tech. when someone asks, how'd they do that? And they try to figure it out. That's how you know it was awesome. So when you go to back up, you can switch between a variety of views, including a view that's basically showing you like a bird's eye view of the car or the van or the vehicle or whatever. You can see front, sides, back, everything. It was epic. That's the best word I could use to describe the backup camera, the integrated camera system that was there with the touch of a button. So I could park a car and know that I was within the lines without having to get out of the car or send Diana out. Like, did I park right? Did I get it right? So that was amazing. That was so perfectly executed. That's a feature that once you have, you don't want to live without. But I thought that was one of the standout features of this car, and I think is almost necessary for vehicles once they get to this particular size. I should note to everybody that the car is on, and you can hear the fans blowing, or you may be able to hear the fans blowing because I don't want to overheat. I hope the camera's not going to overheat sitting on the dashboard right now. I also wanted to turn on the air-conditioned seats, or I guess the coolant seats, cooled seats. I don't know the feature. Either way, instead of a butt warmer, which there is an option for, driver side and passenger in the front, also seat coolers, and I love that as well. Heated steering wheel, which I will never use. Here in Seattle, it gets cold every so often, but usually I'm the type of person who gets a little hot. Solid nav system, had every service that I would expect it to have or need. Satellite radio, local radio, responsive system in terms of mapping and navigability. I like the fact that it's cool when I see the little speed limit sign show up. It doesn't glow red when you start to speed, but you know, that may be in a future software revision. It'd just be something that I've seen in, or I've heard about in other nav systems, just not prevalent in this particular revision. Radar cruise control, an absolute must-have for me in a car. This had that as well. Blind spot warnings in side view mirrors, also very crucial. Once you're in a vehicle that's this long, you sometimes need that. As much as I could check the blind spot, I feel like I'd be really concerned about missing something because it's a longer car. And it's easy to check, a lot of good visibility from the side, but having the blind spot warning lights is crucial. It really is in a vehicle this size, because you need to know. And having that technology there, so long as it works exceedingly well. The only thing I would say in terms of visibility from a driving perspective that really annoyed me, you can see the headrests with the seats behind me. The ones in the way back could be folded down, but we couldn't figure out a way to fold down these. We didn't want to like push and pull or anything. I don't want to break it. It's not my car. But that was kind of annoying. It decreased the visibility through the rear. That's not a windshield. What the hell? The window? The window that you see back there in the way back that has a rear defrost. That thing back there. Comfortable seat options, front and back. In fact, I would say that the back had insanely comfortable seat options. You could even pull up like a further leg rest, so not exactly a footrest unless you're really short. The vehicle's a bit high profile, so it's not as low to the ground. It is a minivan, so I'd imagine that the larger the vehicle, the higher off of the ground it is. But you know, I don't know much about that or why they made it the way they did. But the seat options, either way, I think they made them that way very configurable because this is a car for getting around and traveling. Quite honestly, spoiler alert, it's a good traveling vehicle, not just for the driver, but for the passengers as well. For the passengers to be comfortable, it's very important. All the way to, at least in the back, having the sunshades that you could pull up to keep the sun from being annoying, which on road trips can be very annoying. And I certainly would appreciate a sunshade on the windshield right now. I don't think that's a good feature to have. This felt like a captain's chair, what I'm sitting in right now, right here. It felt like I could get to anything. It was everything that I needed. It was exceedingly accessible. I did not run into any problems in terms of drivability, in terms of needing to use this car to get from point A to point B. It felt very comfortable. I felt like a captain. That's my terminology, not theirs. Although it'd be really cool if they adopted that at some point in the future. Get into the captain's chair. Dual roof windows, sunroofs. I didn't discover the back one, my wife did, and that's kind of neat because, you know, with this vehicle being primarily used to take trips with families, it's nice to know everybody can enjoy the great outdoors from within the great rolling indoors. You have, I guess, electric controls to open or shut the roof windows, but the sliding protector thing is controlled manually. I'm really good with terminology sometimes. That's how real people describe it. Solid, easy steering. You also had an option to change drive mode between Eco and Comfort. I largely went Eco. That's usually how I choose to drive to save, you know, on gas, and it doesn't really, you know, bother me too much in terms of you know, the comfort of driving, because I felt comfortable. Acceleration was exceedingly smooth. I didn't feel like I was jarred, you know, when I was starting or stopping, but of course I was largely in Eco mode. Maybe comfort mode may have been different, but it felt like it was a very smooth acceleration, and of course deceleration as well. Very, very comfortable. It was kind of difficult to gauge when parking without using the camera system, but once you start using the camera system, you kind of look for excuses to park. It's a lot of fun to use. The trunk is relatively deep in terms of it going down, not necessarily back, but the seats can also be moved around to allow for more space in terms of taking things from point A to point B. Good for grocery hauls. It feels good. It feels solid. It feels safe. I would consider it for a buy or a lease if I was in the market. I'm not necessarily in that market though, because we don't have a large family and we don't necessarily need a car that's this big. Not that we wouldn't mind driving it for a longer period of time, but it was definitely something that I would consider in the running. And I don't have a lot of comparison vehicles because this is really the first review vehicle that I've done that it would be considered in the minivan class, or certainly beyond any kind of economy type of vehicle. What do they call them? Those cars? Compact cars? Economy cars? I don't know. Diana drove it too. She liked it a lot, but she, as I had said, to reiterate, she thought that it was too big, and that's not slagging the car. Too big for us. Not too big. Too big for us. So who is this for? It's for the family with 4 or more. It's for people who like to take road trips and those who transport a lot of stuff back and forth. Who is it not for? Most couples. Anybody who is economically minded. It doesn't get amazing mileage. That's not really what I found. And if you have very modest needs, if you don't need a lot in a car, this really offers a lot to the road tripper, the weekend warriors, the families who like to get out and do things. This is probably the vehicle for them. I can imagine not just driving it, it felt comfortable. I would have no problem taking this on the road, but even driving or riding as a passenger would seem comfortable, even though I didn't really have a chance to do that. Diana took out the car alone. I wasn't in the car, nor was our daughter, Jedi. So, yeah, generally speaking, it was a good experience. I'm sad to see it go. I'm very interested in seeing the next car that I'll be trying. I don't think it's going to be anything like this, but it was a good ride. I really appreciate being able to do things like this, and apparently other people appreciate me talking about my experiences with these cars. If I missed anything that you would have wanted me to cover in this car review, it wasn't intentional. I will do my best to follow up with things. In general, I don't really have a rubric for, you know, what I look at in cars. I just talk through experiences and if I liked them, if I didn't like them. And I like the car. There are very few things that I would find not to like if I was in the I guess, market for a minivan type of vehicle, which I always have to keep in mind. It's not always the things that I'm looking for. These are the things that I'm just able to translate it for as experiences. And you now know, or you should know by now, I am not a car geek. I'm just honestly an average consumer as far as cars go. So I know the things that I like, and I know the things that I want more of, and the things that I don't necessarily need, and this would serve me very, very well as a father. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks again for remembering to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you want me to cover anything specific when I do these car reviews, and I can, and I understand it, that's great. I'd be happy to cover it. I have no idea about the car I'm driving next, but of course you can stay tuned to this channel for more. If you want any kind of the actual driving experiences, because someone did ask that, or a few people have asked that, you can tune into our Pirillo vlogs for this week, because we use the car. You actually get to see the driving experiences in the vlogs, so you get like a bonus. Huh? So watch the daily vlogs. You get to see all the cars from that perspective. I'm not leaving anything out. The car review, I'm just stationary. I'm just going to remain stationary, not driving the vehicle. That's what the vlogs are for. So hopefully you're subscribed to that as well. Thanks again for tuning in. But at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices.